Hey guys, it's Evan with Underhill Bonsai, and today I will be going through and wiring and doing some refinement work on this Bald Cypress Taxodium deciduum. And I just wanted to go over a couple of things before we really get into this design and kind of point out some of the things that I've done in previous videos leading up to what we're doing on this one here. So whenever I go through and wire this tree out, I'm going to be doing a very traditional design. So we're going to be following the Japanese aesthetic. So we're going to have a first branch, we're going to have a second branch, and then we're going to have a back branch. And then when it goes to the rest of the tree, I'm going to try to build this crown out to basically look like the strong triangle shape that we see in a lot of Japanese bonsai. So one of the big issues with this tree that I have though is that whenever I carved it initially in the past, the wound didn't heal up the way that I wanted it to. So I think I showed this in the other video where I had the flat top style where I poked the dead wood piece here to see if it was punky or not. And this is indeed getting a little on the punky side. It's not completely gone, but it is quite soft in a few spots. So this will probably rot out in the back here and not heal over this wound. I've been doing flat top Bald Cypress styles. So that means that the styles that you've seen before where the trunks are very, very tall and there's not a lot of branches on the lower parts of the trees, and instead you have this umbrella shape on the top of the tree. That's a completely different style from what we're doing here. And this video is more to just show you guys that, one, I'm not a one-trick pony. I don't just do the same thing over and over again. So I do know the Japanese method, and to also show you guys that the Bald Cypress is a great species for that style as well, because they're very easy to wire, very easy to manipulate in that way. As the branches are very flexible, for instance, this branch here is quite high. I will be able to bend it pretty low here, as well as this one, to kind of put them where I need to. And I'll kind of explain that as I go through this tree. And the biggest challenge of making this tree look right is going to be that back side where I showed you guys. And there's going to be some finagling with some branches and stuff that I will have to do in order to cover up this wound creatively. Or if it comes down to it in the future of the tree where it just will be a hollow, then I will have to address that later on. But typically, whenever you've seen me do other carves on Bald Cypresses like this, they will begin to heal. For whatever reason on this particular cypress, you can see where the cambium began to roll, and there's some of the old cut paste getting pushed off right there. So I need to redress this anyway, so let's kind of peel that off. It's like when you have a weird sunburn. So this needs to be redone. And this also can kind of show me where its moisture is being trapped. But yeah, you can see it right here where the cambium is actually over the dead wood, or the section where I carved it with a carving tool. And then right here, for some reason, it tucked inwards. So it just didn't go over. Instead, it started going in and creating that shell kind of thing that trees do to protect themselves from internal rot. And so I'm not really sure why it did that. Not every big carving job like this is a success. So I just wanted to also be transparent with you guys on this as well, that this is not 100% like every single time that you will carve a Bald Cypress out, that it will result in a good outcome where the wound will heal over. So this is probably something I'm gonna have to deal with for the rest of its existence. So, and another thing to be pointed out, I don't know if it's showing up on camera here very well, but this tree is a little bit light in color. So that's called chlorotic. So it doesn't have all the nutrients and all of the photosynthetic properties that it could have. But also, this is part of why I'm going through this, is because there's been a lot of talk on either Facebook, Instagram, YouTube video content. I've seen this all over the place for different things for Bald Cypresses as bonsai trees. And a lot of people will say that they want to keep their trees in standing water, or they want to fertilize their trees a lot, and you know, because that's the tried and true. That's how people treat Bald Cypresses as bonsai. So if you over fertilize this, these leaves will not stay this pretty nice length here. In fact, they start to get a little bit longer on the ends here. So if it's under fertilized slightly, which this tree is not unhealthy, it's got branches all over the tree. It's got leaves on every single branch. There's not any dead sections, but it's just a little bit lighter in color. So I'm not pushing it really hard to grow because I've already got the branches I need. I've already got the taper that I need, which is unfortunate because the wound didn't heal, but I do have the taper, which is a bummer because if I try to heal this wound some more, then it wouldn't really make any sense because I would just make this too large again for the taper I need there. So there's just a lot of challenges in developing them into this style and doing it really well. But this gave me plenty of branches to kind of wire and to shape into the traditional style here. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to wire out these branches, and I'm sure there's going to be some time-lapse footage, so you guys will see me moving very quickly, but you know, it's going to take me probably an hour or two to go through this and do a little bit of cleaning up on this tree here. So go ahead and get started on that. So in Miyogi styles, usually we want well-grounded roots, and it's considered to be a faux pas to have exposed roots on bonsai like this. But for a bald cypress, in my opinion, this is very suiting, especially if you're from Southeast Louisiana and you've seen this before. So just like when we had Guy on for the ficus video where we did the repot, the tree should be 3 times its width tall. So it's roughly, I'm just gonna eyeball it, so roughly about yay thick. So 1, 2, 3. So we're gonna end up somewhere in here. And then 1/3 of that is also the first branch length to kind of hone in all the proportions. So this is pretty close. So this also means that everything else cannot be longer in Japanese design, cannot be longer than this branch. Also, this branch is kind of scrawny compared to some of the other branches on here, unfortunately. So I will need to grow, like if a shoot comes off somewhere in here, I'll need to let it run for some time to thicken this, because it also should be the thickest branch. So it is kind of a little, it's a little under, it looks like a malnourished first branch on the tree. But this should be the longest branch. And so that tells me that this should be slightly shorter. It cannot stay this long. So I'll have to either cut it back into this piece and kind of just shorten it up, and then everything else should follow suit and then give me that really nice sharp triangle that's going to come up and then back this direction. So I've gone through and done the first and second branch of this bald cypress, doing some refinement work on a relatively young pre-bonsai, but I wanted to say something real quick. Usually when people do this type of work during this time of year on bald cypresses, they tell me that they like to completely defoliate the tree. This is actually very harmful to this species because they are such a high energy tree, and you defeat the purpose of your refinement if you do that. So if I were to take all the leaves off of these, and then just have a bare branch and then put it back out in the sun, I'll have hundreds of new buds on here, and I can easily lose track. And then I'll promote too much strength in that branch, and then I'll lose all of the smaller branches that I might have, because I might have some swelling, and I'll just have buds in places I really don't need them. So you guys notice I've gone through and I've done my best to wire in between each and every leaf. So don't defoliate your bald cypresses in the summer. Sorry, but I have to say it. So because I have this void here where I'm just not going to have branches, I'm just going to cheat a little bit. This is just the way it is. I'm going to bring this branch into there and kind of solve that issue. So I will leave a couple of branches, like I have another one here that I'm going to do the same thing with. And then I'm going to leave this branch up here. It kind of runs in line with my tapering top here, but it's going to help me build this section of the tree out so that it is a little bit more convincing as being fuller in that area. So I'm going to lay these branches down like this. And then here, obviously, we got a lot more to grow here. Now that I'm clearing this out, the way that this works is that because the tree didn't really have any reason to grow anything here because all these branches were growing upwards, I'm pushing them down and out now and trimming them back, exposing this main stem or this main trunk line here, and it's going to encourage it to grow more buds here. I'm going to put a little bit of wire on this and do my best not to break it, just to give it some kind of movement to finish off the design, but it's just going to be for show. I'm probably going to take the wire off. I might even cut this down to here one day, but just so that, you know, when people look at it, they don't feel like it's incomplete. It's just something that as a bonsai artist and designer, I have to do. Put the last piece of wire, and so this is one of the challenging parts for a lot of people whenever they've gotten towards the whole design of their tree, and then they're like, what do I do with the top? And so, like I was saying earlier, I wanted there to be a negative space here between the first branch and then where the canopy starts to build up. My second branch kind of helps guide the viewer, and my second branch isn't long enough because I need to rebuild it to be a little bit longer. That's why this part is just a little bit longer on that side. But that's not a big deal. The tree is still very young in development, so that should just be known. Also, I dropped a lot of branches into this zone here, just like I said I would, and I'm building up the density here, and I'm going to leave a peephole right there so that the viewers can see that, but there will be branches off of this main trunk line in the future. So I'm going to leave this stubbed. I'm not going to try to do anything crazy carving here, because I don't want to break it or mess it up. So when we get to this triangle shape, I said my movement goes this way. So I'll do something as simple as moving this crown in that direction, dropping this branch here and this branch here. And where's my scissors? Right here. And trimming that off. I don't want to do any crazy wire up here. Oop, knocked it straight again. I don't want to do any crazy wiring on these smaller pieces up here because I just don't want to risk bending them too much and messing them up. This is still super soft, but I will replace, like I said, I will replace a lot of this stuff. Like this branch here, like this is coming off in a weird spot and crossing, but I don't care because I'm just trying to make the tree look presentable for now. And this is just going to be a sacrifice. So I will cut this off into here one day. So this will be ultimately the height of the tree. All right, I'm gonna give the tree a spin around so you guys can see all the branches that I laid out and how they're orientated. So we're hitting the midpoint here. We can see the trunk line, the takagari, the first branch, all up into the top here. See how I use those back branches to kind of cover that wound, because from the front, it won't be nearly as obvious when this tree gets older. And then we'll fill in the crown, of course, and this will be a little bit fuller here. So something I wanted to go over with you guys real quick before we wrap up for today. There's a rating system that is starting to develop here within the United States within American Bonsai. So rating bonsai from 1 to 10 on how good of a bonsai they have, how much potential is in the tree to how good of a tree it can become. So that's one thing that we really need to start doing whenever we look at our bonsai and we're developing them or wiring them, or we're trying to get a certain style or shape. We need to look at a lot of determining factors. So when we go through that checklist real quick, roots. If the root base is not set up for a successful, believable bonsai, then you're already losing a lot of points for that. If you don't have good nabari that gives you that old appearance, then you're losing like 5 points. Like it's got to look gripped, rooted to the ground. Otherwise, it doesn't look like a tree. It looks like a sprout. Number 2 is going to be the trunk line itself. What is the quality of the trunk line? What is the movement in the tree? This tree has some subtle movement, kind of going back this way and then this again. And so I actually had to fix the movement in this tree whenever I had collected it originally and it was carved. Let me see if I can find the original front. Yeah, it was kind of like this in the pot whenever I received it after it was collected. So I actually, when I potted it into this container, I had to change that dramatically to this front to take better advantage of that movement and also to hide the scar a little bit better. So I've got some decent points on the way that this root system looks. I got some decent movement in the trunk. Bald cypresses kind of contribute to the trunk line thing because they tend to be taller trees and beefier trees. So the veins in here, you can kind of see that rippling, that muscle kind of texture, that adds to the quality of this tree. So we're doing pretty good. The biggest mark that this tree is always going to have, because it was collected and it was a stump at one point, is this scar, is this giant open area. Unless something is done with this, such as it's just carved out or something special is done to it to kind of make it part of the tree, or just be fine with that this is in the tree. I've seen some very old, beautiful bonsai with their chop marks and their carve marks exposed, and it's just the artist saying there's not much we can do about it. This will probably never heal. We're gonna have to deal with it. That's a huge mark off on this tree, because really good old bonsai are scarless. So in theory, if I were creating this tree and I was to make a perfect bonsai, like a 10 out of 10, I would grow this in the ground and never have that scar. But we're building trees from trees that are collected. We collected this tree for the base, the movement, and we wanted to make something cool out of it. And there's hundreds of thousands of these bald cypresses, so this could be done again and again. Just wanted to show you guys what a good Myogi with this particular tree would look like. And then the last mark that I would say, so roots, trunk line, scars in the trunk, the last thing I would say is just overall, just like, how is the tree built? So what are the bones? So whenever I say bonsai, like my pronunciation, it's kind of almost like a pun where I kind of spit a little bit there. It's kind of a pun where bones, like it's kind of in the way that it's pronounced, and it's Japanese, so that doesn't mean bone. For me, it helps me think about the structure. That whenever you hear somebody in bonsai say, this tree has good bones, it has good structure branches. First branch, second branch, back branch, branches that build the canopy. If all that's there, you're doing good. So if I were to rate this tree on a scale of 1 to 10 and be harsh and honest, this is like a 5.5. It's like a really light 5. Because of the giant scar in the back, there could be more movement. The roots could be a little bit more consistent, a little bit more interesting, and not so awkward here with this straight root that shoots into the ground. Doesn't mean that it's not a great tree. It's just not going to be an elevated best of the best of bald cypress bonsai trees. So that's just an honest critique on it. And I'm not scared to critique my own work. I know what I did. I should be honest with myself about it too. So I'm Evan Pardue with Underhill Bonsai. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you guys want to go back and see more of our videos, you can go back and see other bald cypress videos where I've carved and styled them. This is the first one that I've done as a traditional style. So this was a lot of fun, and I'm hoping to do more content like this soon for you guys. Like I said before, go over to Spotify or whatever other podcast listening service that you use and look up Little Things for Bonsai People to get more information, for more educational stuff on a podcast show. and then go over to underhillbonsai.com to go check out blog posts that I've written and a gallery of trees that I've created. Also, there's a link to the store, underhillbonsaistore.com, and to see what we have available for shipping. We do only ship within the United States at this time, so I do apologize to our international people out there, but we do have shipping available for most of the stock that we have. And we have plenty of bald cypresses. We have a lot of field-grown stock that's ready to go right now, and I will be trying my best to get some specimen quality stuff listed. But the specimen stuff, the big stuff, has to be shipped in the fall. So just keep that in mind, guys. But thank you guys for watching.